I, 42 farads, have always been the invisible child in my family, and now my parents suddenly want me back in their lives. I don't know how to handle this. I'm the youngest of 5 siblings, with a significant age gap between me and the others. Growing up, I always felt like I was living in a parallel universe within my own home. While my brothers and sisters were constantly in and out of hospitals or therapy sessions, I was just there. The quiet one. The one who didn't cause trouble. The one who was easy to forget. My earliest memories are of coming home from school to an empty house. No one asked about my day or checked my homework. I learned to cook for myself at an early age because often, everyone was too busy with my siblings' issues to remember I needed to eat too. I can still remember the sting of disappointment when my parents forgot my birthday 3 years in a row. It wasn't that they were bad people, they were just overwhelmed. With 4 kids dealing with various health and mental health issues, I guess I was the one they thought they didn't need to worry about. I was the healthy one, the normal one. But being the normal one in a family of chaos isn't as great as it might sound. My oldest brother, 52M, has a severe chronic illness that required frequent hospitalizations throughout his childhood and teens. Even now, he struggles with his health and relies heavily on our parents for support. My older sister, 50 farads, battled depression and anxiety from a young age, and I can't remember a time when she wasn't in therapy or on medication. The middle siblings, twins, 48M, both have learning disabilities that required constant attention and specialized schooling. And then there was me, the afterthought, the one who was expected to understand, to not need anything, to just exist. I learned to be self-sufficient out of necessity. By the time I was in high school, I was basically raising myself. I got good grades, not because anyone pushed me, but because I knew it was my ticket out. I joined clubs and sports teams, not for the accolades, but for the chance to stay away from home as much as possible. I remember one particular incident that really drove home how invisible I was to my family. It was my junior year of high school, and I had made it to the state finals in debate. It was a big deal for me. I had worked so hard, stayed up late practicing, poured my heart into it. The finals were on a Saturday, and I had mentioned it to my parents multiple times in the weeks leading up to it. Saturday morning came, and I came downstairs in my best outfit, ready to go. My mom was in the kitchen, looking frazzled as usual. "Oh, are you going somewhere?" she asked, barely looking up from the pile of medical bills she was sorting through. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. She had forgotten. Again. The debate finals, I reminded her, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. "I told you about it. It's today." "Oh, right," she said, but I could tell she didn't really remember. "Well, good luck. Your father and I can't make it. We have to take your brother to his doctor's appointment." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Of course, my brother's health was more important than my debate. It always was. I went to the finals alone that day. I came in second place. When I got home, no one asked how it went. The certificate I received sat on my desk for weeks, unseen by anyone but me. College was my escape. I chose a school on the other side of the country, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. I made friends who actually saw me, who listened when I spoke, who remembered my birthday without being reminded. 2 of them, let's call them M and C, became like the family I never had. After graduation, M, C, and I decided to stick together. We moved to a new state, far from any of our families, and started building our lives. I threw myself into my career, determined to prove that I was worth something, that I mattered, and I succeeded. I climbed the corporate ladder, got promotions, made a name for myself in my field. Now, at 42, I have a life that looks pretty good on paper. I'm a senior marketing executive at a Fortune 500 company. I lead a team of talented individuals, and I'm known for my innovative strategies and ability to handle high-pressure situations. It's ironic, really. Growing up invisible made me exceptionally good at making things visible, at getting people to pay attention. My days are busy, filled with meetings, presentations, and decision-making. I work long hours, but I love what I do. It gives me a sense of purpose, of value, that I never had growing up. When I walk into a room at work, people listen. They see me. They value my opinion. It's a heady feeling, one I never get tired of. Outside of work, I have a comfortable life. I own a beautiful condo in the city with a view of the skyline. I travel when I can, exploring new places and cultures. I have a small but tight-knit group of friends. M and C are still my rocks, but I've made other connections too. We have regular game nights, weekend brunches, and movie marathons. I've been in therapy for years, working through the abandonment issues and the lingering feelings of invisibility. It's been a long, sometimes painful process, but it's helped me understand myself better. I've learned to set boundaries, to value myself, to not seek validation from people who can't give it. I thought I had put my family drama behind me. My interactions with my parents and siblings over the past 2 decades have been minimal. Occasional phone calls on holidays, a rare visit every few years. It's not that I cut them off entirely, but I kept them at arm's length, protecting myself from the pain of their indifference. But last week, out of the blue, I got a call from my mother. I almost didn't answer. We hadn't spoken in over a year, and our last conversation had been a brief, awkward exchange of pleasantries. But something made me pick up the phone. "We want you to come home for Thanksgiving," she said, without even a hello. Her voice sounded older, more tired than I remembered. "Your father and we miss you." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Miss me? They missed me? Where was this missing when I was growing up? Where was it when I graduated college and none of them showed up? Where was it for the past 20 years when I've been building a life for myself? I don't know if I can make it, I stammered, caught off guard. I have plans with friends, and work is really busy right now. Plans with friends? My mother's voice took on that guilt-inducing tone I remembered so well from childhood. We're your family. Surely your friends will understand if you need to change your plans. Family. The word felt hollow, meaningless. What did family even mean when you'd spent your whole life feeling like an afterthought? "Your siblings will all be here," she continued, either not noticing or choosing to ignore my hesitation. It would mean so much to have everyone together again. I felt a surge of resentment. Everyone together again? When were we ever all together in the first place? I couldn't remember a single family dinner where someone wasn't at the hospital, or in therapy, or having a crisis. "I'll think about it," I said finally, just to end the conversation. But as soon as I hung up, I knew I wasn't going. I couldn't go. The thought of sitting around a table, pretending everything was fine, acting like we were a normal, happy family, it made me feel physically ill. But now, a week later, I'm still wrestling with this decision. Part of me, a small, childlike part that I thought I'd outgrown, wants to go. Wants to believe that maybe, finally, they see me, that maybe they regret how they treated me and want to make amends. But the adult part of me, the part that's been in therapy and done the hard work of healing, knows better. They're not calling because they've had some grand epiphany about how they neglected me. They're calling because they're getting older, because my siblings are still struggling with their own issues, and they've finally realized that I'm the only one who has their life together. I'm not their daughter. I'm their backup plan. And yet, I can't stop thinking about it. What if I'm wrong? What if this is a genuine attempt to reconnect? Am I being too harsh, too unforgiving, or am I finally setting healthy boundaries and protecting myself? The call has brought up all sorts of feelings I thought I had dealt with. I find myself thinking about my childhood more than I have in years. The other night, I dreamt I was back in my old bedroom, screaming at the top of my lungs, but no one could hear me. I woke up in a cold sweat, feeling like that lost, invisible child all over again. It's affecting my work too. Yesterday, I zoned out in the middle of an important meeting, lost in thoughts about my family. My team noticed. They kept shooting me concerned looks. I've built a reputation for being focused, unflappable. But now I feel like I'm unraveling, all because of one phone call. I've talked it over with M and C, and they both think I shouldn't go. They've seen firsthand the damage my family has done, the years it's taken me to build myself up. They're worried that going home will undo all the progress I've made. You don't owe them anything, Em said, her voice firm. You've built a beautiful life for yourself. Don't let them drag you back into their drama. C was a bit more diplomatic. I know it's hard, he said. But remember how long it took you to stop flinching every time the phone rang? How many panic attacks you had when you first started setting boundaries with them? Is it worth risking all that progress? They're right. I know they are. But there's still that small voice inside me. That little girl who just wanted her parents to see her, to love her. She's the one whispering that maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time, they'll finally be the family I always wanted them to be. But they also say it's my decision, that whatever I choose, they'll support me. And I appreciate that, I do. But it doesn't make the decision any easier. So here I am, turning to strangers on the internet for advice. Am I wrong for not wanting to go? Am I being selfish for choosing my own peace of mind over a family reunion? Or am I finally doing what's best for me after a lifetime of being overlooked? I know Thanksgiving is still a few months away, but this is consuming my thoughts. I'm having trouble sleeping, trouble concentrating at work. Every time my phone rings, I feel a jolt of anxiety, wondering if it's them calling again. Part of me wants to block their numbers, to cut off all contact, and continue living my life as I have been. But another part feels guilty for even considering that. They're still my parents, after all, even if they weren't very good ones. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to reconcile the lonely, invisible child I was with the successful, independent woman I've become. I don't know if I can face my family without reverting back to that scared, neglected little girl. So Reddit, what should I do? Should I go to this Thanksgiving dinner and risk reopening old wounds, or should I stay away and potentially close the door on any chance of reconciliation? How do you deal with parents who ignored you for decades, suddenly wanting you in their lives? Any advice would be appreciated. I feel like I'm drowning in indecision, and I could really use an outside perspective. Update 1. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and I wish I could say things have gotten clearer, but they've only become more complicated. I appreciate all the advice and support from my previous post. It's given me a lot to think about, but recent events have thrown me for another loop. First, I got an unexpected call from my older brother, the one with the chronic health issues. We haven't spoken directly in years, so seeing his name on my caller ID was a shock. For a moment, I thought something terrible had happened. My heart was pounding as I answered. "Hey, sis," he said, his voice sounding older and more tired than I remembered. "Do you have a minute? There's something important we need to discuss." That "we" sent a chill down my spine. It sounded ominous, like he was speaking for the whole family. I braced myself for bad news. "Mom and Dad have been talking," he continued, not waiting for my response. "They're getting older, and they're worried about the future. About who's going to take care of things when they're gone." I felt a knot forming in my stomach. I had a feeling I knew where this was going, but I hoped I was wrong. "They want to make you the legal guardian for one of the boys when they're no longer able to care for them." The boys. He meant our brothers with severe health issues. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Guardian? Me? The invisible child they barely remembered existed for most of my life? What? I managed to choke out. "Why me? Why now?" My brother sighed heavily. "Look, I know it's a lot to ask, but you're the only one who's really stable. The rest of us, we've got our own issues. You're successful. You've got your life together. They think you're the best choice." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After years of neglect, of being an afterthought, suddenly I was their go-to person for this massive responsibility. It felt surreal, like a cruel joke. "Have they even considered asking me about this?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. "Or were they just going to spring it on me at Thanksgiving?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. They were hoping to discuss it in person," he finally said. "I thought you should know beforehand. Give you time to think about it. Think about it." How could I possibly think about taking on guardianship of a sibling I barely know, a sibling whose care has consumed our parents' lives for decades? I can't do this, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I can't just drop everything and take on this responsibility. I have my own life, my own plans. I know it's a lot, my brother said, his voice apologetic. But they're desperate. They need to know someone will step up when they're gone. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence for what felt like hours. The audacity of it all was overwhelming. They ignored me for years, and now they want to saddle me with this enormous responsibility without even asking me first. Just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, I received a letter from my mother a few days later. It was long, rambling, filled with the same guilt-tripping language I remembered from childhood. She went on about how hard things have been for them, how they've sacrificed so much for the family, and how they need me now more than ever. The part that really got to me was near the end. She wrote, "We're not asking for much, sweetheart. We just need to know that when we're gone, someone will step up for the family. You're our only hope." Only hope. What about all the times I needed them? Where was their hope for me when I was growing up, feeling invisible and unwanted? I've been a mess since receiving that letter. I've had trouble sleeping, trouble focusing at work. My team has noticed. I've had to reschedule meetings because I just can't concentrate. This situation is affecting every aspect of my life, and I hate it. I hate that they still have this power over me. I called M&C over for an emergency wine and venting session. They were both furious on my behalf. "They can't do this to you," M said, her eyes flashing with anger. "They can't ignore you for decades, and then suddenly expect you to be their safety net. It's not fair." C was more measured, but no less supportive. "You need to think about what's best for you," he said gently. "Not what's best for them, or what they want. What do you want? What do I want?" It's a simple question, but one I'm finding incredibly hard to answer. Part of me, that little girl who always craved her parents' approval, wants to say yes, wants to finally be the good daughter they never saw me as. But the adult me, the one who's worked so hard to build a life and identity outside of my family's shadow, is screaming no. I've spent so much of my life trying to prove my worth to them, trying to be seen, to be valued, and now that I finally have a life where I am seen and valued, they want me to give it all up, to put my life on hold, to clean up the mess they've made. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. They're not asking me to be part of the family. They're asking me to be their caretaker, their safety net. They don't want a relationship with me. They want a guarantee that their problems will be taken care of when they're gone. After hours of talking it through with M and C, I've come to a decision. I'm not going to Thanksgiving. I'm not going to be their guardian. I'm not going to let them pull me back into the dysfunction that I worked so hard to escape. I know it won't be easy. I know there will be guilt trips and emotional manipulation. But I also know that I deserve better. I deserve to live the life I've built for myself, free from the burden of their expectations and neglect. Tomorrow, I'm going to call my brother back and tell him my decision. Then I'm going to write a letter to my parents, explaining why I won't be coming for Thanksgiving and why I can't be the guardian they want me to be. It's going to be hard, but I know it's the right thing to do. I'm scared. I'm sad. Part of me still wishes things could be different, but I'm also proud of myself for finally standing up for what I need, for prioritizing my own well-being over their demands. To everyone who commented on my last post, thank you. Your words of encouragement and support have been a lifeline during this difficult time. It means more than you know to feel seen and understood after a lifetime of feeling invisible. I'll update again after I've talked to my family. Wish me luck. I have a feeling I'm going to need it. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and I feel like I've aged years in just a few weeks. The situation with my family has come to a head in ways I never expected, and I'm still reeling from everything that's happened. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my last post. Your support and advice meant the world to me during a really difficult time. I took your words to heart, and they gave me the strength to stand my ground when I needed it most. As I mentioned in my last update, I had decided not to go to Thanksgiving and to refuse the role of guardian for my siblings. I called my brother and told him my decision, then sent a letter to my parents explaining my reasons. I thought that would be the end of it, at least for a while. I was wrong. Last week, I came home from work to find my mother, 70 farads, standing on my doorstep. I nearly dropped my keys in shock. She's never visited me before, not when I moved into my first apartment, not when I got my big promotion, not even when I bought my condo. But here she was, looking older and more tired than I remembered, standing at my door like she had every right to be there. "Mom," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "What are you doing here?" She didn't answer right away. She just looked at me, her eyes roaming over my face, like she was seeing me for the first time. Maybe she was. "We need to talk," she finally said, her voice soft but firm. "Your father, he's not doing well. The doctors say." She trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. My father was sick, and I hadn't known. But then I remembered. I hadn't known because they hadn't told me, because they never tell me anything unless they need something from me. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, careful to keep my voice neutral. "But I don't see what that has to do with me." My mother's eyes widened in shock. "He's your father," she exclaimed. "How can you say that? Is he?" I shot back, surprising myself with the bitterness in my voice. "When has he ever acted like a father to me?" My mother stepped forward, and for a second, I thought she might try to come inside. I stood firm in the doorway, blocking her entrance. I wasn't about to let her into my space, into the life I'd built for myself. "Please," she said, her voice taking on that guilt-inducing tone I remembered so well from childhood. "We need you. Your father is in and out of the hospital, and I can't handle everything on my own." "Your siblings." "My siblings." I cut her off. "Always my siblings. What about me, Mom? When have you ever needed me for me, and not for what I could do for everyone else?" She looked at me like I'd slapped her. "That's not fair," she said. "We've always loved you. We've always been there for you." I couldn't help it. I laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound that seemed to echo in the empty hallway. "Been there for me? When? When you forgot my birthdays? When you missed my debate finals? When you didn't come to my college graduation? Tell me, Mom, when exactly were you there for me?" My mother's face crumpled, and for a moment, I felt a flash of satisfaction. Finally, she was feeling a fraction of the pain I'd carried for years. "We did the best we could," she said, her voice breaking. "You don't understand what it was like, trying to keep everyone alive and healthy. We didn't have time for me," I finished for her. "You didn't have time for me. Because I wasn't sick. Because I wasn't causing problems. Because I was invisible." We stood there in silence for a long moment, the weight of decades of unspoken hurt hanging between us. "I'm sorry," my mother finally said, and for a second, I almost believed her. "We never meant to make you feel that way. We love you. We need you. Please, come home. Help us." I felt tears pricking at my eyes, but I blinked them back. I'd cried enough tears over my family. "I can't," I said, my voice firm. "I won't. I have my own life now, Mom, a life I built without you. I'm not going to give that up to be your backup plan." "Backup plan?" she repeated, her voice rising. "Is that what you think this is? We're your family." "No," I said, and the finality in my voice surprised even me. "You're not. Not anymore. My family is the one I chose, my friends who've been there for me, who've supported me, who've seen me when you couldn't be bothered to look." My mother stared at me, shock and hurt warring on her face. "So that's it," she said. "You're just going to turn your back on us?" I shook my head. "No, Mom, you turned your back on me a long time ago. I'm just finally walking away." She didn't have anything to say to that. She just turned and walked away, her shoulders slumped in defeat. I watched her go, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. It felt like the end of something, the end of hope, maybe. The end of the fantasy that someday my parents would see me, would love me the way I needed to be loved. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought I'd made my position clear. But life, as always, had other plans. A week after my mother's visit, I got a call from my brother. My father had passed away. I sat there, staring at my phone, not sure how to feel. Sad, relieved, guilty. I felt numb, like I was hearing news about a stranger, not my own father. The funeral is next week, my brother said. Will you come? I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. No, I said finally. I don't think I will. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I understand, my brother finally said, and I was surprised to hear no judgment in his voice. Take care of yourself, sis. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time, just thinking about my childhood, about my father, about the relationship we never had. I thought about all the times I'd wished for his attention, his approval, and I realized something. I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need any of it. I've spent so much of my life trying to be seen by my family, trying to earn their love and attention. But the truth is, I don't need their validation anymore. I've built a life for myself, a life I'm proud of. I have friends who love me, a career I'm passionate about, and a sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. My father's death feels like the closing of a chapter, a sad chapter, full of missed opportunities and unspoken words. But it's over now, and I can't change it. All I can do is move forward. I won't be going to the funeral. I won't be reaching out to my mother or my siblings. It's not out of spite or anger. I've moved past that. It's simply because I've realized that I don't belong in that world anymore. I've outgrown it. To those who might judge me for this decision, I want you to understand. This isn't about forgiveness or lack thereof. It's about self-preservation. It's about recognizing that some relationships are too damaged to repair, and that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is to walk away. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not sad. I'm just free. Free from the weight of expectations I could never meet. Free from the pain of being overlooked and undervalued. Free to live my life on my own terms, without the shadow of my family's dysfunction looming over me. To everyone who's followed my story and offered support and advice along the way, thank you. Your words have been a source of strength and comfort during one of the most difficult periods of my life. You've helped me find the courage to stand up for myself, to prioritize my own well-being over the demands of others. This will be my last update. From here on out, I'm focusing on my future, a future that I get to shape, free from the baggage of my past. It's scary, in a way, but it's also incredibly liberating. To anyone out there who might be in a similar situation, who might be struggling with family expectations, who might feel invisible or undervalued, I want you to know that it's okay to choose yourself. It's okay to walk away from relationships that hurt you, even if those relationships are with family. You deserve to be seen, to be valued, to be loved for who you are. Thank you all, one last time, for being the supportive community I never had growing up. Your kindness and understanding have meant more than you could ever know.